Hi everyone, welcome back. Níl dé si Carly Francis ach léamh sa Sohannig. My name is Carly Francis and I'm from Eskasoni. Today I'm gonna speak with you guys about the current Nova Scotia cancer data that we have. So who holds the data for our Mi'kmaq communities? So currently the data is being held by our First Nation leadership, and that's being held at the Duigan Partnership. Duigan Partnership holds all the currently is holding all the First Nation health data, and how it holds that health data is they look at uh, a person's status card, and they're able to link that with the provincial health data that's available. So just like our Nova Scotia population, they're able to look at their health data. So this is why it's important that we also, as a Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq, we're able to look at our health data as well. So why is this important and why is data important? Well, data is important because it allows our Mi'kmaq healthcare teams, our Mi'kmaq leadership, to be able to make those important decisions for our community members, not just for the present generation, but for our future generations, so that we can potentially better our health outcomes. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys here is from Duigan Partnership again. And this is just health data that's available between 2004 to 2013. And they were able to look at the cancer data that's available. So these are new cancer cases. And this graph here, I know it looks complicated, but it's really easy once I'm just able to explain it. So the orange here represents our Mi'kmaq communities, our Mi'kmaq people. And the blue here represents the general Nova Scotia population. Well, we wanted to make a comparison between the two to see how we're doing as people. And when we looked here, so we were being diagnosed. There were 260 number of cases of those who were diagnosed with cancer between 2004 to 2013. And when we compared that to the general Nova Scotia population, we were just quite similar, uh, similar rate to the overall general Nova Scotia population. And then this graph just further breaks down these groups of these cancers, specifically looking at colorectal cancer, so colon cancer, lung cancer, and breast cancer, and these are all other cancers. The one that stands out here is, you might have already guessed it, lung cancer. So lung cancer really stands out when we compare it to our general Nova Scotia population. But the one that's actually slightly below of those who are being diagnosed with breast cancer between 2004 to 2013, they're actually just slightly below the general Nova Scotia population. So the next thing that they looked at, the Duigan Partnership, is they looked into cancer deaths. So cancer deaths are deaths that are caused by cancer, and there were 104 deaths that were caused by cancer. And we appear to be dying just slightly above when compared to the general Nova Scotia population. You know, we have had community members who have unfortunately passed away from cancer, which is really hard, and that I just want to acknowledge them. Um, and so when we looked at the cancer deaths, they were slightly above the general Nova Scotia population. But what alarmed the Duigan Partnership is the breast cancer here, because remember from that previous graph I just showed you, we were just slightly below the average. But then when they looked at the deaths, it appears that we're actually dying from breast cancer at a higher rate when we compare it to the Nova Scotia population. So they asked the question, why? Why is this the case? Well, there's several different answers. There's not just one single thing that could cause that, you know. And that's something that I want to make sure that you understand that there's just not a definite answer of why that's the case. We have heard many different answers to why this might be. But one thing that the Vegan Partnership was able to look at is they were able to look into the screening. So they wanted to find out if we were participating in screening program for breast cancer in particular. So Canadian target. So they want at least women between age 50 to 69 to be, our 70% of our women to at least be participating in the breast cancer screening. So when they looked at the Nova Scotia, again, in our Mi'kmaq people, um, we actually appear to be participating in screening programs at a lower rate. So that could be one of the reasons why, that might be the answer. Because how screening programs work is if you participate in the screening program, um, this allows the healthcare team and yourself to be able to identify that cancer at an early stage. Um, so, I talked about in my previous video between the difference between stage 1 to stage 4. Well, the breast cancer screening, they'll be able to identify it at the very earliest stage so that the healthcare team can do their best to help you. So the next thing they looked into was the screenings. So there are 3 Nova Scotia screening programs in Nova Scotia, and that's breast cancer screening, colon cancer screening, and cervical cancer screening. So they wanted to further look into screening and how we're doing with screening. So what they found out in breast cancer screening is that while 36.5% of our women went to screening, only 25% kept up with their screening. So that means that a person went to the mammogram, but only 25% of that um, of that population, they followed up with their screening. So I think we could do slightly better when we look into breast cancer screening. So the next thing they looked into was colon cancer screening. So colon cancer screening, how they do that is they have a test, and that's called the fecal immunochemical test, and that's a long word. Um, and that's the FIT test. And the FIT test it's available so it could identify colon cancer at a very early stage. And how it does that is on your 50th birthday, you would receive some mail from our Nova Scotia Health Authority that's asking you to submit a tiny sample of your stool so that then that could be sent back and looked into the lab to be able to identify if there's any abnormal cells, any irregular cells, any precancerous cells, any cancerous cells in your stool, so that it would allow, again, our healthcare team to act quick and to be able to help you further with that. The next one is for our women, cervical cancer screening. And you might have already heard about the cervical cancer screening, which is the Pap test. So the number of people who participated in the Pap test it's great for our women in their early reproductive years. But after the age 40, the number of the women who participate goes down. So again, why is that the case? I think, if you're a woman that's listening, you may be able to answer that. And so for the colon cancer screening, there was a low uptake of those who participated in the FIT tests. I think a lot of the times because not a lot of people understand what's being brought to them in the mail. So that's my theory. That's what I might think. So just a reflective question is, what did you learn about the data that was just explained? So if you could just pause the video, think about it. I know this is a lot of information, but just think, what did you think about the data that was explained? And again, just keep in mind, this is data from 2004 to 2013. And just, think about it. And do you find data beneficial? Do you find it helpful? Is this something helpful for you to make your decisions in the future? So up next, we're gonna have my next video, I'm gonna talk about the Nova Scotia screening programs, and I'll go through the guidelines and what's currently available and what's known about them. So I'll go into some detail talking about the breast cancer screening, the colon cancer screening, and the cervical cancer screening. So, Walalio, and I hope you guys can join me on our next episode where I talk about the screening programs. Walalio.